It's kind of like an agitator. My pants are getting foamy from all the soap I couldn't rinse out. So there I am walking through England, covered up like this, with my stick in my hand, spewing suds with every step. Dignity lies deeper than one's clothes, I discovered. Also, not so deep, though, that it can avoid literally walking in water because it filled my shoes. But I got to the end. There was the end spot, a place where one could say you'd made it, and there it was by this beach, a little gazebo, sea-bleached, with a little bench, a map, well-worn, faded, no crowd, no horn to blow, no one to greet me and say, congratulations. Just me, my foam, my feet, and a picture I took of myself on my iPhone. And then I trudged off to my lodging, where I was glad to be rid of my socks for another day. And I made a sacrifice. I paid the Roman gods for the privilege of walking along the wall. I gave them my pants. I left them to be thrown away in the merry Isle of England. These are replacement pants. Otherwise, what you see is exactly what I wore that day. Not a very auspicious appearance. I'm telling this story as one of four stories about my story of pilgrimage life in England for a week, another story about liberal religion, about this church, and the fourth one about the Wizard of Oz. And I have a small problem. I put my glasses down someplace I do not know. So I'm going to go to the pulpit, and I'm going to look very earnestly. And it won't be at you. It'll be at the book that I have in my hand here. And you'll forgive me, right? Good for you. When we think about The Wizard of Oz, the story, the movie especially, it has an anticlimactic end of its own, doesn't it? The four creatures finally get to the Emerald City with the broomstick of the Wicked Witch. They go to present it to Oz, who tries to brush them off. And then, of course, in the movie version at least, the dog tugs at a little curtain, and it shows not a wizard, but just a little old man. And when confronted, he said, I'm not a bad man, I'm just a bad wizard, which would be true for all of us, I would imagine. None of us are very good wizards. But you were looking for something else. They were looking for something else, someone to bestow upon them a heart, a brain, courage, home. They were a little bit disappointed, I dare say. And I'm coming to the end of that story because the word that we use in religion to talk about pulling back the curtain is the word revelation. To reveal literally means to pull back the curtain. And of course, in classic and Orthodox Christianity, the Bible is considered a revelation, that it pulls back the curtain on God's will and wishes. But of course, there's a problem, because in the 18th century, as scientists in Europe began looking hard at the Bible, they discovered it wasn't quite as uniform and reliable as they thought it was. Studies in philology and archaeology and history were showing that the Bible was a very complicated instrument. And so science began to pull back the curtain on the Bible itself. And the liberal movement in religion is essentially a willingness to pull back the curtain whenever we can, to see reality as it is, to confront it no matter what it is, to deal with reality, not with wishes. We all say we want the truth, right? We all say it's better to be traveling with the truth in mind, not a delusion. But let's also be honest that when the truth comes and it doesn't quite work out the way we want, we go reluctantly. Just think of all the political conversation. Even when people give each other facts, nothing changes. We want reality to be the way we think it is. It's hard. It's hard to change. It's hard to move on. Real revelation, the kind that really shows us what the world is like, is terrifying. It really is. I think some of the fear that religious fundamentalists have is the real and very profound fear that their souls are anchored not on the rock they think it is, but on the sands of changing reality. No wonder they don't want to listen to it. I understand this fear quite literally. About, 10 years ago, maybe more, I think it's more like 12 or 13 years ago, I took my family down to the North Carolina shore where today it's being pelted by a hurricane. It was a day very similar. A hurricane was coming up, so the surf was very exciting. And I held my youngest, who was then holdable, in my one left arm, and his legs were wrapped around my waist. You know how they do that. And he had his arms around my neck, and we stood not even waist deep in the surf, and the waves would come over, and we'd laugh, and we'd sputter, and here comes another, and here comes another, and then one that didn't look different, but was, because it knocked me down. And of course, once you're no longer standing on the sand, as you try to get your feet in the sand while the water's rushing, the sand rushes out from under your feet. So suddenly, not only am I knocking down, I'm sliding out into the ocean. And there's my son holding on, and suddenly his feet aren't holding on. And then I only have one hand. I'm holding him by one hand as the sea is pulling him away from me. And I get one knee in the sand, and I drag him across it until we are both scorched by the sand. And there's the lifeguard looking down with his equipment ready to save us. Gasping, snot running from our noses, we crawled out of the surf. That's the kind of fear that revelation brings when it comes. It pulls the world out from under you when you start drowning in the truth. Is it any wonder that some people, maybe people in this room, when they found the surf of reality to be too much in a church of their youth, went inland to science, away from church altogether, rejecting all religion as being inherently unstable? And yet, if you're here today, you're back on the shore. You've decided that there's something going on here in the world between faith and fact, between belief and reality. Something important happens here at the joining places of life. So if you're in a church, you've decided to put your feet back in the sand and try to occupy the nether zone of reality. How do we do this? Well, you heard Brian talk about the nuts and bolts of it, and it's really important. But the liberal religious endeavor is nothing except the desire to have feet firmly planted in the sand and to be able to negotiate the tides of reality and the boulders of life, to find a way to live in the places in between. That's what we do. But I want to give you a dream that's a little larger than even what Brian said. Yes, we need to bolster our education. We absolutely do. It's a gift we give to this community. We need to become more accessible to the world out there, accessible in ways that perhaps we don't even know. And we need to engage the future challenges of diversity, because by the time I'm 100 years old, and that's what I want to be, because I want to be there will be no racial majority in the country anymore. It'll be a nation of nations. And if you think it's hard now, it's not getting any easier. So if we're really serious about being present for the community, we have to get ahead of the anxiety curve. We got to get down to the shore, even during the troubled times. But I want to give you a way to put this all in one package, one way to look at this. It's my own hope, my own dream. I'm hoping you will share it with me. Here it is. By 2019, which will be our 150th anniversary, I want everyone in this city to have a connection to Fountain Street Church. Now that sounds exotic and grandiose, but We're already halfway there. I'm talking about finishing a job, going the distance, not starting on something new. For example, you think that you're the church. Well, most of you are. And some of you are visiting. Anyone visiting today? Oh, come on, don't be shy. Hey, there you are. Yeah, good. Say hey to me afterward. Say hey to them before they leave, okay? Edie, I'm looking at you. All right. She's adorable. You'll love her. She and I went on a date this week, by the way. She's a classy lady, absolutely. Ask me about that. So here's the deal. This is not the church. This is the congregation, but the church. You want to know what this church does, where it connects? A year ago, on our front porch, Occupy Grand Rapids lived there and really annoyed some of you, didn't they? Because they were messy and uncoordinated. But we got email and phone calls and thank yous from the rest of the community that said someone needed to take them in. You did.